The air over San Francisco Bay bit with a sharp, damp chill, cutting through the heavy mist. It was New Year's Eve, and the city was poised between the final minutes of a difficult year and the manufactured promise of a new one. In the wealthy enclave of Presidio Heights, the massive, elegant homes blazed with warm, indifferent light. Windows shone onto the street, displaying glimpses of glittering parties and champagne flutes, a world utterly insulated from the raw cold just outside the glass. Daniel Hayes, CEO of a thriving fintech company, was a fortress of control. At 36, he wore a custom-tailored coat and a face composed of practiced calm. He moved with the brisk, focused stride of a man who dealt uncertainties, but beneath the composure, Daniel was emotionally frozen. For 18 months, since a sudden illness had stolen his wife, Sophia, grief had been a silent, constant companion. He focused only on getting his 5-year-old daughter, Pamela, home and into her bed before the fireworks started. Pamela, bundled in a bright pink parka, was pure, unadulterated excitement. She skipped ahead, her gold curls bouncing. "Daddy, do you think the fireworks will be purple this year? Mommy always loved the purple ones." "I hope so, sweetie," Daniel replied, the familiar ache in his chest tightening at the mention of Sophia. He lived for Pamela, maintaining the facade of normalcy, but the thought of letting anyone else into their tight, careful orbit was impossible. As they turned a corner off the main avenue, the noise of the parties faded, replaced by the howl of the wind funneling between two tall, unyielding buildings. They neared the entrance of an old, historic library, the stone archway dark and deep. Huddled there, pressed into the cold granite, was a figure. It was Aaliyah Jenkins, a young Black American woman in her mid-20s. She was slender, shivering, and the exhaustion on her face was a heavier burden than the thin, worn clothes she wore. All her energy was directed toward protecting the small bundle clutched against her chest. Her son, Noah. The baby, just over a year old, whimpered softly, his fragile breath visible in the frosty air. Aaliyah shifted the frayed blanket, desperately trying to stretch a thin, pale gray scarf around his tiny, exposed hands. Daniel, conditioned by years in the city, instinctively began to pull Pamela along. "Don't get involved. Call a non-emergency number. This isn't your problem." But Pamela dug her heels in, stopping him with a surprising force. She was looking at Noah, her bright blue eyes wide with innocent, uncompromising urgency. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice insistent, piercing the numbness Daniel kept so carefully guarded. "Her baby is freezing. We have to help." The plea was a direct, unfiltered challenge to the wall Daniel had built around his heart. He looked at Aaliyah, at the sheer, agonizing desperation in her eyes, and then at his daughter, whose face radiated the purest form of human compassion. He couldn't shake the memory of Sophia's core belief, that the purpose of their immense fortune was to afford immediate compassion. Without another thought, Daniel knelt. The tailored wool of his coat brushed against the rough stone of the sidewalk. He unraveled his thick black cashmere scarf, a soft, luxurious thing worth more than Aaliyah's entire collection of worldly possessions, and carefully wrapped it around Noah. The baby quieted almost immediately, his small body responding instantly to the deep warmth. "I'm not offering money right now," Daniel said, his voice low and devoid of judgment, meeting Aaliyah's gaze. "I'm offering shelter. I have a service apartment for traveling executives. It's warm, private, fully provisioned, and empty." He held out a single gleaming metallic key card. "Take this key. It's yours until the new year passes. Just for the night. No strings." Aaliyah stared at him, her lips slightly blue. Her body screamed rejection. She knew the price of accepting help, but her mother's instinct screamed louder. She saw the relief washing over Noah's pale face as the cashmere took hold. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers closing around the cold plastic key and the unexpected promise it held. Daniel stood, taking Pamela's hand. "It's near the Embarcadero," he instructed gently, pointing down the street. "Take the SUV, it's still idling a block up. Go now. Please." Aaliyah nodded once, unable to speak, the key burning in her palm. With a new, fierce determination, she adjusted Noah, rose from the archway, and disappeared into the San Francisco mist, following the path to the unimaginable sanctuary that had appeared in her darkest hour. Aaliyah's mind was a frantic mess of survival instincts until the automatic garage door of the luxury financial district building hissed shut behind her. The service apartment was 22 stories above the street, a world away from the granite archway. It was designed with the cold, modern elegance of a high-flying executive, all glass, polished chrome and unsettling silence. The warmth hit her first, a clean, bone-deep heat that instantly softened the knots of ice in her shoulders. She collapsed onto a plush white sofa, barely able to breathe. For the first time in months, she let Noah slide gently from her arms onto a soft, thick rug. He lay still, his tiny chest rising and falling evenly, the black cashmere scarf still cocooning him. Aaliyah simply watched him, convinced the moment was a hallucination that would dissolve with the chime of midnight. She found the kitchen fully stocked with organic groceries and a note printed on expensive stationery. Formula, diapers, baby wash, and clothes are in the master suite closet. Please rest. The efficiency of Daniel Hayes was almost insulting in its perfection. Standing under a scalding shower, a luxury she hadn't known since she had a dorm room, Aaliyah wept, silent tears mixing with the steam. The water washed away the grime of the streets, but not the gnawing, internalized guilt of having to accept this charity. 2 days later, the new year had come and gone in a blur of sleep and quiet security. Aaliyah had cleaned the apartment, folded the endless supply of pristine towels, and organized the baby supplies, seeking control in a world that had offered her none. Noah was thriving, his cheeks plump and rosy, his eyes tracking her movements with renewed curiosity. That afternoon, Daniel's number appeared on the apartment phone. Aaliyah? Daniel Hayes. I hope I'm not disturbing you. I just wanted to check in and see if you and Noah have everything you need. His voice, though professional, held a hint of warmth. Everything is overwhelming, thank you, Aaliyah replied, standing stiffly in the expansive living room. The formula, the heat, it's more than enough. We will be out tomorrow. Don't worry about that yet, Daniel said gently. My daughter Pamela is here. She actually wants to say hello to Noah, if that's all right. Pamela's tiny face popped into view on the video screen. She was holding a small, worn stuffed rabbit. Hi Aaliyah. Is Noah awake? Did the cashmere work? Aaliyah couldn't help but smile. The cashmere worked perfectly, Pamela. He's sleeping like a prince. The interaction cracked Aaliyah's defensive shell. This wasn't a ruthless CEO. This was a man responding to his daughter's heart. The conversation settled into an easy rhythm. Daniel asked not what she needed but who she was. He asked what she did before the cold archway. Aaliyah found herself hesitantly telling him about her time at Berkeley, her passion for sustainable design, and her dream of creating the community design lab. She walked to her bag and pulled out her tattered notebook, the only thing of value she had left besides Noah. This is what I do, she whispered, carefully flipping the pages to show him floor plans, sketches of modular housing, and detailed blueprints for urban community gardens. I wanted to build dignity. I wanted to build solutions. Daniel studied the images, his expression shifting from curiosity to profound recognition. These are exceptional, Aaliyah. Truly visionary. He was silent for a long moment, watching the designs. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, carrying a burden of old pain. I had a dream like that once. My wife, Sophia, she studied art history, but she had a singular obsession with ethical, accessible architecture. We had a plan to launch a foundation, the Sophia Hayes Community Initiative. Daniel paused, collecting himself. 18 months ago, I was driving her to a materials expo, a construction site inspection. I didn't check the road closure signs properly. There was an accident. It was quick, but it was because of my carelessness. He ran a tired hand across his face. When she died, I shut down the initiative. I couldn't bear to touch it. I couldn't bear the guilt. I just focused on the markets, on the numbers, on the things I could control. Their eyes met through the screen. Two strangers who had met at their lowest point now shared the deepest wounds of their lives. Aaliyah's passion thwarted by circumstance, Daniel's purpose destroyed by grief. Daniel realized that Aaliyah's vision wasn't just talented, it was the echo of the mission he had lost. Daniel spent the remainder of the day wrestling with the images Aaliyah had shown him. The detailed floor plans, the innovative modular housing concepts, and the bold vision for a community design lab. He realized her work wasn't just a student's portfolio, it was the tangible blueprint for the nonprofit his wife, Sophia, had always wanted to build. The shame over Sophia's death had paralyzed him, causing him to lock away the foundation's purpose 18 months ago. Now, Aaliyah's talent felt like a key, a way to unlock Sophia's legacy and perhaps his own emotional health. He called his longtime executive assistant, instructing her to quietly initiate the paperwork to establish the Sophia Hayes Community Initiative as a nonprofit arm of Hayes Innovations. He had decided, the money would flow not as charity but as seed investment. The following afternoon, Daniel took Pamela to the executive apartment. He used the visit as an excuse. The real purpose was to see Aaliyah's designs again and make the offer face to face. The children settled the tension in the room instantly. Pamela, with her sunlit curls, approached Noah, who was now awake and curious, with the solemn reverence of a young princess meeting a foreign dignitary. Noah gurgled, delighted by the bright colors of Pamela's clothes, reaching out a tiny, firm fist. "He's so much bigger now, Daddy," Pamela whispered, holding out her stuffed rabbit for Noah to gum. The easy, unforced connection between the two children dissolved any awkwardness between the adults. While Pamela played, Daniel found Aaliyah in the kitchen, carefully cleaning an already immaculate countertop. "Aaliyah, I've been thinking about your designs," Daniel began, setting his briefcase on the sleek island. "Your focus on sustainable, respectful architecture for vulnerable communities, it's exactly what Sophia and I dreamed of funding." Aaliyah tensed, anticipating a donation or a small grant. "I appreciate you looking at them, Daniel, but I can't ask for funding. I need to earn my way." "I agree," Daniel said, opening his briefcase and pulling out a sheaf of papers. "Which is why I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a job." He slid a contract across the counter. Hayes Innovations was emblazoned at the top. "I am officially relaunching the Sophia Hayes Community Initiative," he explained. "It will operate as a non-profit under the company umbrella. I need a director of architectural research and design to lead the vision, someone with a passion for the ethics and logistics involved. Someone who has lived experience and a vision of what true dignity looks like." Aaliyah picked up the contract, her hands trembling. The salary was generous, the benefits comprehensive, and the title was real. The scope of work was dedicated entirely to building her dream, the Community Design Lab. "You'd be working remotely, focusing on concept development, logistics, and establishing community partnerships," Daniel continued. "The terms recognize that your primary responsibility is Noah. This isn't a temporary gesture, Aaliyah. This is a 5-year renewable contract. It's an investment in the future of the company and, more importantly, in Sophia's vision." Aaliyah looked up, tears blurring the crisp legal text. This was the difference between a handout and a lifeline. Daniel saw her as a professional, a visionary, not a victim. He was giving her back her dignity. "I accept," she whispered, her voice husky with emotion. "I will not let you down. I promise." Daniel nodded, a small, genuine smile finally reaching his eyes. "I know you won't. I believe in your vision, Aaliyah. I need it, actually." Later that evening, Daniel drove Aaliyah and Noah to a quiet, spacious guest house on his own Presidio Heights estate. It was separate from the main house, surrounded by towering cypress trees, offering privacy and peace. "The financial district apartment is needed for a client next week," he explained. "This guest house is usually empty. You can work here and Pamela can see Noah and you easily." As Aaliyah stood inside the small, light-filled cottage, surrounded by clean walls and the scent of fresh wood, she held Noah tighter. She had a contract. She had a purpose. She had security and it felt earned. In the other room, she could hear Pamela giggling as she helped Daniel unpack a box of Noah's new toys. Aaliyah realized that this sanctuary wasn't just for her and Noah. It was the first tentative foundation for a family Daniel hadn't realized he still needed to build. Aaliyah's life settled into a rhythm defined by purpose and security. The guest house, filled with the warmth of the roaring fire and the scent of coffee, became the nascent community design lab. She poured her prodigious energy into the project, fueled by the knowledge that this work was respected, real, and paid for with dignity. Her days were a blur of architectural sketches, feasibility studies, and organizing data, punctuated by Noah's naps and the frequent, bright intrusions of Pamela. Pamela often visited after school, bringing coloring books and demanding to see Noah's latest improvements. The girls, Aaliyah and Pamela, formed a quiet, domestic partnership. Pamela would entertain Noah with elaborate stories while Aaliyah worked, a simple, unexpected family structure forming around Daniel's careful benevolence. But the corporate world was less forgiving than the guest house. 3 weeks into Aaliyah's contract, Daniel was forced into a tense meeting with his chief operating officer, Marcus Thorne. Thorne, a man whose sharply angled suits and ice-blue eyes perfectly reflected his transactional worldview, was focused solely on one metric: the imminent, massive conglomerate sale that would make Daniel a truly global figure, and make Thorne personally wealthy beyond measure. "Daniel, we need to talk about the initiative," Thorne began, his voice dry and clipped as he gestured toward a tablet showing financial projections. "And about your guest." Daniel leaned back, his own expression cooling. "The Sophia Hayes Community Initiative is fully budgeted and operating within its nonprofit parameters, Marcus. It's not up for discussion." "Of course it is," Thorne countered, tapping the tablet screen dismissively. "It's a corporate vanity project, but more crucially, it's a reputational risk at the most sensitive time. We have high-net-worth investors flying in next week. They buy stability. They buy clean governance. They do not buy a CEO suddenly hiring a charity case who lives on his property." Thorne's tone was deliberately insulting, cutting Aaliyah down to her original circumstance. "The optics, Daniel. A struggling single mother, black no less, is now the director of a project named after your late wife? The rumors are already starting. People see reckless spending. They see emotional instability. They see a distraction from core business." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Aaliyah is the most talented designer I've ever encountered. She is working on a fully budgeted initiative that is protected from corporate politics." "Protection is irrelevant when the narrative is poison," Thorne hissed. "We're talking billions here. Get her off the estate. Transfer her work elsewhere. Give her a severance package. She's too much of a risk to the sale." Daniel ended the meeting abruptly, dismissing Thorne with a steely finality. But the COO's words, cold and sharp as they were, contained a truth Daniel couldn't ignore. His kindness, fueled by his grief and Pamela's compassion, was creating a tangible threat to his business empire. That evening, Daniel visited the guest house alone after putting Pamela to bed. He found Aaliyah at the dining table, surrounded by her architectural drawings, a single lamp illuminating her intense focus. Noah slept soundly in his crib. "I need to be honest with you," Daniel began, setting aside his initial attempts at casual conversation. He sat across from her and explained the pressure from Thorne and the impending conglomerate sale. He detailed how Thorne was exploiting their unique situation to create a narrative of instability. "Marcus is worried that my relationship with you and the initiative, framed by the media as a rescue, makes me look compromised," Daniel explained, rubbing the back of his neck. "He wants me to end your contract. To remove you from the estate." Aaliyah's face remained neutral, but Daniel saw the shadow of old fear flicker in her eyes. "He was right about one thing," she said quietly. "I am a distraction. I don't want to jeopardize the company or your future, Daniel." Daniel reached out, his hand resting tentatively near her portfolio. "No. You are not the problem. Thorne's cynicism is. The minute I treat you like a liability, I prove him right. I prove that every decent thing I've done since Sophia died was just a rich man's fleeting moment of weakness." Their eyes met across the table, connecting in a moment of shared purpose. "Thorne's tactics won't stop with me," Daniel warned. "If he thinks you're vulnerable, he will try to exploit you to get to me. He is a predator." Aaliyah took a deep breath, the shadow fading, replaced by the same fierce determination Daniel had seen on New Year's Eve. Then we fight him. This contract, this project, it's my dignity. I'm not giving it up because some corporate bully can't handle a good story. Daniel smiled, a genuine, relaxed expression of relief. Good. Because I'm not letting you go. Now, tell me about this passive solar array on your latest design. We have a meeting next week to fund the pilot project, and I need to be prepared. As the evening deepened, they worked together, immersed in the shared vision of the community design lab. Daniel, the business mastermind, guided the funding logistics, while Aaliyah, the visionary, refined the architectural details. The external threat, voiced by Thorne, had inadvertently pushed them closer, solidifying their bond from a relationship of benefactor and employee to one of allies fighting for a shared, important cause. 2 days after Daniel's warning, the knock came. Aaliyah was finalizing the preliminary budget for the community design lab when a sleek black sedan pulled up the guesthouse driveway. A man stepped out, his suit sharper and more intimidating than Daniel's and his smile colder. It was Marcus Thorne. "Miss Jenkins," Thorne greeted, his tone patronizingly familiar, as if Aaliyah were a minor executive he was about to lecture. "I know this is unsolicited, but I thought we should talk, for the benefit of all involved." Aaliyah's defenses instantly snapped into place. She stepped outside, closing the door behind her to shield the sight of Noah playing inside. "Mr. Thorne, my contract is with Daniel Hayes and the initiative. Any business needs to go through him." Thorne chuckled, a dry, dismissive sound. "That's precisely the problem, isn't it? Daniel is distracted. He's allowing sentiment to cloud his judgment. My offer, however, is purely practical." He handed her an embossed card, not for Hayes Innovations, but for a rival architecture and development conglomerate, Prestige Global. "I'm prepared to offer you an outstanding position with Prestige, real architecture, not charity work. We'll offer you a salary that ensures Noah never wants for anything, full benefits, and an apartment in the city. Immediate security." Aaliyah stared at the card. It was everything she had dreamed of: stability, a name-brand firm, a safe future for her son, presented on a silver platter. Her stomach twisted with temptation. "Why?" Aaliyah asked, her voice steady despite the internal tremor. "Why would you do this for a charity case?" Thorne's eyes, cold as glaciers, held hers. "Because I value stability, Miss Jenkins. And Daniel Hayes is currently unstable. He's risking billions based on the ghost of his dead wife and a project born of emotional weakness." He pulled a single document from his jacket. "My offer comes with one requirement. This is an affidavit stating that during your time here, you observed Daniel exhibiting erratic behavior, reckless spending, emotional outbursts, and a general distraction from his duties. Sign this and the Prestige offer is yours. The conglomerate sale is dead, Daniel is removed, and you are financially set for life." The choice slammed into Aaliyah, the guaranteed safe path versus the path of integrity. Thorne was asking her to trade Daniel's genuine, albeit complicating, kindness for a lie. He was asking her to become the cynical opportunist he already assumed she was. "Thorne, you're asking me to commit fraud," she said, her voice dropping dangerously low. "I'm asking you to protect your son," he countered, leaning in. "Daniel sees you as a project. I see you as a transaction. Transactions, unlike emotions, are reliable. 1 month from now, when Daniel's sentimental contract runs out, where will you be? Back on that bench? Or signing papers for your son's college fund? Don't be foolishly loyal to a man who will always choose his business over a distraction like you." Aaliyah took a deep, shuddering breath. She thought of Daniel showing her the contract with the commitment to her dignity. She thought of Pamela's pure love for Noah. She looked at Thorne, who saw only her skin color, her poverty, and her utility as a weapon. "You're right about one thing, Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice now sharp with absolute resolve. "I am absolutely devoted to protecting my son." She tore the affidavit in half and tossed the pieces onto the snow at his feet. "But I would rather go back to that cold archway than owe my future, or my son's, to a man with no soul." Thorne's controlled composure cracked. His face was a mask of cold fury. "You will regret this, Miss Jenkins. You have just chosen hardship over security. No, Aaliyah countered, taking a defiant step forward. I chose my self-respect. And I chose the man who honored it first. Now get off this property. Thorne, defeated and enraged, returned to his car. Aaliyah watched until the black sedan disappeared down the drive before rushing inside. She found Daniel moments later in his home office at the main house, her heart pounding. She laid the torn pieces of the affidavit on his mahogany desk. Marcus Thorne just left the guest house, she stated, her breath still coming in gasps. He offered me a job at Prestige Global. Everything I needed. But the price was lying for him to sabotage the sale. Daniel looked at the torn paper, then up at Aaliyah, his expression shifting from shock to deep, palpable relief. You told him no, Daniel murmured. I told him exactly what he was. He knows he can't use me. He knows I am your ally, Daniel, not your liability. In that moment, any remaining professional distance between them vanished. Daniel stood, walking around the desk. He didn't touch her, but his eyes held a depth of gratitude and affection that transcended the bounds of a work relationship. Thank you, Aaliyah, he said, his voice husky. You chose integrity over everything. You chose us. He picked up the pieces of the document and crushed them in his hand. Now we deal with the fallout. The board vote is next week and Thorne will be going for the kill. Aaliyah just risked everything. She refused guaranteed financial safety to stand by her integrity. She chose the hard fight over the easy escape. We believe that kind of courage is worth supporting. Don't just watch her pay the price, be counted in this fight. Hit the subscribe button now and show the world that dignity is worth more than a bribe. Tell us in the comments, was Aaliyah right to reject the offer? The week leading up to the board vote felt like a high-stakes siege. Marcus Thorne, leveraging every corporate maneuver and rumor he could, intensified the pressure on Daniel. Articles appeared in niche business journals, thinly veiled whispers suggesting Daniel's grief-fueled instability and reckless investment in personal projects. Aaliyah, now fully aware of the scale of the battle, watched Daniel work, recognizing the immense toll the fight was taking on him. Despite the chaos, Aaliyah continued to work on the community design lab plans, refining the pilot program for modular, self-sustaining housing. Daniel, increasingly reliant on her presence, would often retreat to the guest house in the evenings, finding peace and clarity not in his penthouse office, but surrounded by Aaliyah's sketches and Noah's quiet breathing. On the morning of the vote, the air in the Hayes Innovations Tower was thick with tension. The board meeting was held in the executive conference room, a polished wood cavern overlooking the entire city. The decision was straightforward: either approve the conglomerate sale, offering a massive, safe payout, Thorne's plan, or reject it, betting on Daniel's future vision, Daniel's plan. Daniel sat at the head of the table, composed but coiled. Thorne, across from him, wore a satisfied, predatory smirk, convinced he had secured enough votes through fear of reputational risk and promise of immediate profit. Thorne presented first, arguing with cold, logical precision. This sale is the culmination of decades of work. It is financially responsible and ensures the stability of every shareholder. To jeopardize this for a sentimental and proven community initiative run by an unvetted employee living on the CEO's property is madness. Daniel's judgment is compromised. When it was Daniel's turn, he did not dwell on spreadsheets. He began by speaking about his late wife, Sophia, not with grief but with profound respect. Sophia believed that Hayes Innovations wasn't just a financial instrument, it was a resource for progress. After her death, I buried that vision. I let grief paralyze me. Marcus calls this new initiative reckless sentiment. I call it finding our company's true purpose again. Daniel paused, then pulled out Aaliyah's original worn portfolio sketches. He didn't introduce her by her circumstances but by her worth. This is the vision of our Director of Architectural Research and Design, Aaliyah Jenkins, Daniel stated, displaying Aaliyah's detailed blueprint for sustainable urban redesign. A vision born from the necessity of survival. This is the future of ethical investment, building value that lasts longer than a quarterly return. He then addressed the elephant in the room, the rumors Thorne had weaponized. You have been told that this project and Ms. Jenkins herself are a risk, Daniel continued, his voice hardening with righteous certainty. You have been told that I am unstable and that this is merely a sentimental fling. Let me show you what true integrity looks like. Daniel placed the torn affidavit from Thorne onto the projector screen, displaying the rival firm's logo, the false claims, and the offer of immediate financial security for Aaliyah. Mr. Thorne attempted to bribe Ms. Jenkins to sign this document and publicly lie about my character, Daniel announced, the revelation silencing the room. He offered her the dream, guaranteed financial freedom for her son Noah, if she would betray the trust one placed in her. A trust, I remind you, that he himself created. He looked directly at Thorne, who sat frozen, his cold facade finally shattered. Aaliyah Jenkins, a woman he dismisses as a charity case, chose to tear up her immediate security rather than compromise her ethics. She chose integrity over money and loyalty over fear. If you choose to sell this company, you are choosing Marcus Thorne's cynical, transactional values over the very foundation of integrity that Aaliyah demonstrated. He finished with a powerful challenge. You are not voting on a sale today. You are voting on the character of Hayes Innovations. You are voting on whether we choose fear or whether we choose purpose. The board broke for a tense, silent deliberation. When they returned, the chairman announced the result. The motion to approve the conglomerate sale has failed. The vote is 7-5 against the sale. A wave of profound relief washed over Daniel. He had won the corporate battle. He didn't waste a moment. Marcus, Daniel said, his voice quiet but final, gather your things. Your employment with Hayes Innovations is terminated, effective immediately. Daniel left the boardroom and immediately called Aaliyah. She answered instantly, having been anxiously awaiting news in the guest house. We won, he breathed into the phone. The sale is off. Thorne is out. And I used your integrity to win the vote. You saved us, Aaliyah. The victory was not just professional, it was deeply personal. Daniel had successfully transformed his grief and guilt into a clear, purposeful path forward, with Aaliyah walking beside him. The primary external threat to their unconventional family was gone. That evening, Daniel returned to the guest house, not as a victorious CEO, but as a man finally free of the shadow of the past. He found Aaliyah setting the table. I need to celebrate, Daniel declared, pulling her into a spontaneous embrace, their first real non-platonic hug. We need to celebrate the only way that makes sense. By getting to work. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a key, gleaming and new. The funding for the Community Design Lab pilot is released tomorrow. And I need you, Aaliyah, to formally present the final designs at a major industry event next week. It's time the world sees your work. The high-profile industry event celebrating Hayes Innovations' renewed commitment to social good was held in a sweeping ballroom overlooking the San Francisco Bay. This was Aaliyah's debut. She wore an elegant, tailored emerald dress Daniel had insisted upon, her hair styled in a sleek coil, her presence commanding. The transformation from the woman huddled on the cold bench was complete. She walked with the confidence of an architect, not a survivor. Michael, handsome and relaxed, stayed close to her side, introducing her not as an employee but as the visionary who saved his company's soul. When it was time for the keynote, Daniel took the stage. He opened with a concise summary of the board vote, confirming the permanent removal of Marcus Thorne and the secure, independent future of the firm. The crowd applauded his victory, but Daniel held up a hand. The greatest risk we faced, he said, his voice echoing with conviction, was not financial instability. It was the risk of losing our purpose. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room before settling on Aaliyah. My late wife, Sophia, taught me that wealth is only meaningful when it builds something better. After she passed, I forgot that. I let grief become paralysis. He then introduced Aaliyah, inviting her to stand. Tonight, I have the profound honor of introducing the woman who showed me how to remember. The new director of the Sophia Hayes Community Initiative is Aaliyah Jenkins. The audience gave a polite ripple of applause, but Daniel wasn't finished. You may know Aaliyah's story from the whispers. You may think she is a recipient of charity. Let me correct you. Aaliyah and her son Noah, didn't need my charity, they gave me back my purpose. They taught me that true stability isn't in a bank account, it's in the courage to rebuild. Her vision for sustainable, dignified housing is the most important investment this company will ever make. He spoke with raw, public sincerity, not just praising her professional talents, but acknowledging her dignity and strength. The applause that followed was thunderous, tinged with respect and surprise. Aaliyah felt a swell of triumph, the noise of the crowd drowning out the memory of Thorne's cruel dismissal. Later, as the event wound down, Daniel took Aaliyah's hand and led her away from the fading celebration. "I have one more celebration planned," he murmured. "And it's just for us." They took a private elevator to the very top floor, the empty, windswept rooftop of the skyscraper, which offered a breathtaking panoramic view of the sparkling city lights. "This is one of the oldest buildings in the city," Daniel explained, guiding her toward the railing. "It represents endurance, Aaliyah. Something you understand." He reached into his pocket and presented her with a key. It was heavy, vintage, and bore a distinctive etched pattern. "This is yours," he said, handing it to her. "It's the key to the ground floor of an old bank building in the Mission District. High ceilings, industrial windows, incredible natural light. I finalized the purchase today. It's now the physical home for your vision, the community design lab." Aaliyah gasped, clutching the key. This was more than an office, it was an anchor. A permanent, independent space for her dream to take root, unattached to the guest house or his personal life. "Daniel, I don't know what to say. It's perfect." "I know what I want you to say," he replied, his voice low, filled with all the hope and vulnerability he had held back for months. He took her free hand and moved to kneel before her on the cold rooftop concrete. Aaliyah's breath caught as Daniel pulled out a small dark velvet box. He opened it, revealing a ring unlike any she had imagined. It held 2 stones, a brilliant white diamond, classic and perfect, sitting beside a deep, luminous sapphire. "This diamond was my mother's," Daniel began, his gaze steady. "It represents tradition and the precious past, the love I shared with Sophia and the foundation she built for me. And the sapphire," he gently touched the deep blue stone, "represents truth, new beginnings and purpose. Our future." He looked up at her, the wind whipping his hair, the city sparkling below. "Aaliyah Jenkins, you came into my life when I was functionally dead. You taught me how to honor my past by building a better future. You made Pamela whole again and you gave Noah a father. Will you marry me, make this family complete, and build a new, better world with me and Pamela?" Tears stung Aaliyah's eyes, not of sorrow but of overwhelming joy and certainty. This man saw her strength, her past, and her boundless potential. He wasn't asking her to erase his grief, he was asking her to join it with her hope. "Yes, Daniel," she whispered, bending down to meet him. "With all my heart, yes." He stood, slipping the 2-stone ring onto her finger, the sapphire and the diamond shining brightly. As Daniel pulled her into an embrace, holding her tightly on the silent rooftop, the city lights seemed to rise up to meet them, celebrating a love born of compassion and forged in the fire of integrity. They were home at last. The months following the proposal were a whirlwind of construction, collaboration, and quiet, domestic joy. Daniel and Aaliyah set a date for early summer, a small, private ceremony on the manicured lawn of the Presidio Heights estate. The wedding itself was a beautiful testament to their unconventional union. Pamela, radiant in a cream dress, served as the exuberant flower girl, scattering petals with an earnest solemnity only a 5-year-old can muster. Noah, just shy of his 2nd birthday, was carried down the aisle by Daniel, his happy gurgles providing the soundtrack to their vows. Aaliyah wore a gown designed by a local San Francisco artist, and her ring, the sapphire and diamond, glistened as Daniel slipped on his matching sapphire band. It wasn't the end of a fairy tale, it was the deliberate, beautiful beginning of something real. Life settled into a rhythm defined by purpose and shared responsibilities. Aaliyah and Noah officially moved into the main house, transforming the silent rooms into spaces filled with the noise of children. Pamela and Noah bonded with the absolute, uncompromising devotion of newfound siblings, their laughter echoing through the halls once heavy with Daniel's grief. Daniel found that every decision, every success, and every small frustration felt lighter now that it was shared. The hole in his chest hadn't been filled, it had been mended with purpose and love. Aaliyah threw herself into the community design lab. The Mission District space, once a cavernous, empty bank, was transformed into an architectural incubator. It became a thriving hub where Aaliyah, now Director Jenkins, mentored younger designers, focusing on her sustainable modular housing projects. Her work was celebrated in local and national media, praised for its innovative blend of dignity and practicality, a far cry from the clip art designer Thorne had mocked. She was now a recognized leader, her childhood dream realized and magnified. The professional success, however, was secondary to the creation of their New Year's Eve sanctuary fund. Daniel and Aaliyah jointly established the foundation, dedicated to providing immediate, comprehensive shelter, resources, and mentorship to homeless mothers and children on New Year's Eve, the anniversary of the night they met. "We need a name that reminds us why we started," Daniel had told her. "A reminder that the most important connections often happen when we least expect them." Aaliyah, thinking of the cold, stone archway that had been their prison, smiled. "Let's call it the Archway Project. It represents the transition from exposure to safety." That first New Year's Eve as a married couple, Daniel and Aaliyah visited the inaugural Archway Project shelter. They didn't seek recognition, they simply wanted to meet the families their story was helping. Watching mothers and children receive the simple, profound gift of warmth, food, and security, Aaliyah squeezed Daniel's hand. They had taken their moment of despair and turned it into an enduring promise of hope for others. As the clock neared midnight, the family gathered in the penthouse living room. Pamela, struggling valiantly to stay awake, was nestled against Aaliyah. Noah, fast asleep, was tucked into a portable crib nearby. Daniel poured 2 glasses of champagne. "To the Archway Project," Daniel murmured, raising his glass. "To purpose." "To us," Aaliyah replied, tapping her glass against his. "To the fact that true stability is built on integrity, not transactions." As the city below erupted in the sound of fireworks, painting streaks of color across their living room window, Daniel pulled Aaliyah close. "1 year ago I was functionally dead," he whispered into her hair. "And you were freezing under a stone archway. Now look." Aaliyah leaned into his embrace, looking around at her sleeping children and her beloved husband. She knew that every challenge they had faced, grief, poverty, corporate betrayal, had only strengthened the beautiful, unconventional family they had chosen to create. She was home. Chapter 9, Full Circle. 3 years later, the Community Design Lab had completed its first phase of sustainable modular homes, earning Aaliyah Jenkins both national grants and the coveted Architect of the Year award from a prominent San Francisco journal. Daniel, now fully focused on ethical investment, guided Hayes Innovations to record success, leveraging purpose alongside profit. Marcus Thorne was a forgotten footnote. Their home life was a beautiful, chaotic symphony. Pamela, now 8, was the self-appointed protector of her younger brother, Noah, who was a confident, energetic 4-year-old. The house echoed with their blended giggles and arguments. On the 3rd New Year's Eve since they met, Daniel and Aaliyah decided to uphold a private tradition. They drove the Range Rover down from the Presidio and parked a few blocks from the old library, now officially sponsored by the Archway Project and undergoing renovation to become a community resource center. It wasn't freezing, but the air was sharp and clear. They walked toward the spot, the stone archway where Daniel had found Aaliyah and Noah. The archway was no longer dark. Construction lights illuminated its stone facade, and a small, hopeful plaque marked it as the future site of the Sophia Hayes Memorial Reading Room. Aaliyah held Daniel's hand, her 2-stone ring catching the light. She was no longer looking at the spot with fear, but with gratitude. "It feels small now, doesn't it?" Daniel murmured. "This tiny corner that felt like the whole world that night." "It was the whole world," Aaliyah replied, squeezing his hand. "It was the boundary between survival and possibility." Noah, bundled in a puffy coat, spotted the large, smooth column of the archway. He ran over and pressed his cheek against the cold stone, fascinated. "Pamela, look." Noah shouted, pointing. Cold rock. Pamela, ever the dramatic older sister, immediately knelt beside him. That's not just cold rock, silly. That's where Mommy and you were sleeping when Daddy found you. It's our magic spot. Aaliyah watched her children interact with the birthplace of their family, a place of pain transformed into a point of origin. It wasn't a secret they kept, it was their testament. Daniel slipped his arm around Aaliyah, drawing her close. They looked at their children, two white, black and beautifully connected lives, exploring the space that once represented their deepest despair. The board meetings, the sale, the designs, the weddings, Daniel said quietly. All of that happened because a 5-year-old girl couldn't bear to walk past a cold rock where a baby was sleeping. Aaliyah turned into his embrace, meeting his gaze. And because a billionaire widower was brave enough to let her teach him kindness. The distant sounds of the city celebrating the stroke of midnight began to swell, horns, shouts, and finally the first boom of fireworks. As the explosions lit the sky above them in brilliant, impossible colors, Daniel kissed her, a promise sealed not with wealth, but with shared purpose. A single act of compassion had not just saved 2 lives, it had rebuilt one broken heart, redefined a corporate empire, and forged an unconventional family stronger than any stone archway. Their journey had proven that sometimes, the greatest beginnings are found on the coldest nights. You just watched Aaliyah and Noah, a mother and her 1-year-old, huddle for warmth under a concrete archway, just steps away from a world they couldn't touch. You saw the immense courage it took for her to survive, and the courage it took for Daniel to finally stop. Now look at your screen. You are warm. You are safe. All we are asking for is one click. If this story moved you, if you felt a fraction of the fear Aaliyah felt, or the moral imperative Daniel realized, don't scroll away and forget. Don't let this be just another video. Honor their struggle. Hit the subscribe button right now and share this story with one person who needs a reminder of what truly matters. Did you subscribe? Good. Now tell us in the comments, what was the moment that Daniel should have stopped the car?